Well, joining me this morning is Sandra Khadhouri. She's the co-founder of Renew, a new political party, recently registered, and I think you've had your first press launch, is that right?
We have. Renew was set up last autumn after the elections by a group of independent candidates, and I joined them straight after. And our proposition is basically we want to rethink Brexit, renew Britain. And we believe that we want to deliver social change for the country and address inequality, drive prosperity, but from a position of strength within the European Union.
Right, so effectively, for you to be successful with the goals of your party, you have got to have a second referendum, haven't you?
Well, we think the tide is turning, actually, Nigel. We do see that many campaigning groups, as you say, are coordinating better now. And we're tapping into a feeling among voters that they didn't know everything that leaving the EU would be about. There's now more information on the table. There are the semblance of a deal coming together. We're not even still clear what that deal is. And now that this information is available, we think the voters deserve another chance to see whether or not they agree.
Okay. No, I mean, I hear that. And yet, isn't your difficulty that a few weeks ago, sitting in that very chair, was Sir Vince Cable, leader of the Liberal Democrats, who kind of pretty much said exactly the same thing that you've just said. So we've got the Liberal Democrats who want an exit from Brexit, want a second referendum, and will make the same economic arguments broadly that you're making. We've got the Labour Party, going through a big change in their Brexit policy. Key speech tomorrow that Jeremy Corbyn is going to make, but it looks like the Labour Party are going to be committing to us being signed up to a customs union. We don't quite yet know where they are on the single market, but it would appear, despite Frank Field and Kate Hoey warning them that there are 4 million Brexit Labour voters, but it seems like Labour are going in that direction. So why do we need Renew, a new political party, if effectively that ground is covered already?
We are a brand new party, and I think that's important that we have a clean slate. We actually have to go back to the people. Millions of people feel politically homeless. They feel politicians are out of touch. The major political parties are riven by disagreement and infighting. Labour's on the fence about the European Union. The Conservative Party are botching negotiations terribly. The Liberal Democrats have been discredited and failed to make an impact at the polls. We need something new to create a new vision for the country. We're at a critical situation now. We need to go back to the people, find out what's wrong, what's working, what's not, and what gives them hope for the future. And we are on a wrong path right now, Nigel, and we really do feel people need a new alternative so they can make another decision about where we're heading.
So who's your leader?
We have 3 leaders at the moment.
Three?
I'm one of them. Yes,
3?
It's a new
How on earth are you going to get the British public to understand a political party with 3 different leaders?
Actually, I think it's a really wonderful proposition. We've got 2 of our leaders are currently out and about, a Listen to Britain tour. We're carrying out surveys to ask people what's working, what's not, what gives them hope. They are visiting universities, schools, colleges. They're going campaigning in the street. They're mobilising our 800 candidate applications for Parliament and thousands of supporters we've got coming in. And they're campaigning now and asking people, engaging people on the real problems of inequality and division in our country and how we should address it at the national level. If we leave the EU, we will not be able to address these problems properly. Our economic growth will be reduced, and we actually feel we need to stay in from a position of strength and really talk about the divisions and inequities in this country.
So if I'm a member of the public and I meet one of your co-leaders, by the way, you better give us their names because I don't know who they are.
Absolutely. James Torrance and James Clark.
Thank you. So I'm out there and I meet one of the Jameses on the street and I say, right, new party, Renew. Okay, what's your policy on the National Health Service?
Well, it's very interesting on the National Health Service. Obviously, it's been crumbling. Obviously, there's so much demand and it's not been able to be dealt with. Obviously, we're going to have reduced public money available after we leave the European Union because economic growth will go down. We've also got chronic shortages of doctors and nurses in our health service at the moment because EU nationals are no longer coming to Britain. We saw the figures the other day, reduced immigration from the EU. And we actually have the health sector very much alarmed at the moment at the increasing cost of pharmaceuticals because sterling has gone down. So we actually...
Sterling was at 144 the other day against the dollar, higher than it had been the morning of the referendum.
Well, overall, it has led to sort of higher costs for the pharmaceutical industry. And we feel that the health sector will actually benefit from staying in. Also, the collaboration, the scientific research and the medical research that is part of the cooperation with the EU will be affected.
Would you not accept that one of the things that has put huge pressure on the National Health Service over the course of the last 10 to 20 years has been the fact that our population is rocketing, and that much of that has actually come from the European Union. That part of the health crisis problem that we have at the moment is because of the open door we've had to the European Union. And my guess is that the Jameses, as they're out there campaigning, are going to be met with that argument.
Well, obviously, I mean, immigration is an interesting and important issue, and it does need to be addressed properly. There are restrictions we could put in place that the EU has offered, where we could actually see that people who have not found a job within 3 months and are a burden on the health social services could be returned home. But overall, immigration has largely benefited this country, and we've seen a great diversity and skills being brought in. Businesses are currently alarmed by the reduction of numbers of people from the EU. It's enabled growth in our country and productivity. And we have to be careful about misinformation about immigration. We are a diverse society, and we are also immigrants ourselves into the European Union. Our young people are devastated. They will not be able to benefit from the opportunities of living and travelling and working
Are
in
you
Europe.
honestly suggesting that outside the European Union that young people won't go to university in Heidelberg or wherever it is?
Well, all that's up in the air, isn't it, Nigel? I mean, it will definitely not be as easy as it is
But
while we are in the
there's
EU.
a very big world out there. And actually, in many ways, our young people, when they have their gap years, don't really choose Europe anymore. They choose the rest of a world that in many ways is getting much, much smaller. 17.4 million people voted, the biggest exercise in democracy ever taken place in this country. A remarkable result given virtually the entire establishment, Goldman Sachs, through to big businesses, through to political figures, senior figures, not just from Britain, but across the whole world. And despite this, in this great exercise of democracy, we voted to leave. Isn't your party an anti-democratic party if you want to overturn that?
We're actually strongly democratic, in fact, Nigel. We are actually looking for 650 candidates for Parliament, which is a huge
No, I
exercise in
understand that,
representative democracy.
but the fact is we had a referendum. We were told by the establishment that whichever way we voted to leave, that would be a binding result, and that Parliament and the government would hold faith with the people. And here you are, setting up a brand new party that wants to go completely against that.
Well, we do want to go back to the people now. Now there's more information on the table. Well, it would be a first vote on the final deal. When people voted on June 23rd, they did not know exactly what leaving the EU meant. And there wasn't a proposition from people.
They voted to leave.
And actually, it was only a narrow majority that voted in favour. And some polls show that there is now a majority in favour of remaining in the EU. And with that uncertainty, it surely is not responsible for us as a country to make such a monumental and existential decision unless we know that a serious majority of the country are on side with this. There is not enough consensus right now. Obviously, the problem of Ireland was never discussed during the referendum campaign. Issues of security and our global influence were not discussed. Scotland, our major cities.
No one disagrees. No one disagrees that of course, this is complex. But Sandra, the point I'm making is we did have a result. Let me ask you, I'm looking at your documentation, and you've clearly had a lot of design work has gone into this, and launching political parties is not the cheapest thing to do. So what are your main sources of funding at the moment for this party?
We have multiple donors. We have a few private donors, and we have candidate donations and supporters, volunteers. All our board and our chairman and our party members have actually contributed as well. And we're crowdfunding. We're crowdfunding the Listen to Britain tour.
Have you directly or indirectly taken any money from George Soros?
No, we have not.
And would you take money from George Soros' organisations?
I would think about it. We haven't really talked about that properly at the moment. But obviously a new party does need some funding, and we will be interested in people who share our vision, who actually want to support the idea of a new grassroots movement that is actually going to offer a new vision for people and for the country, which desperately needs to come back together.
And tell me, what's been the hardest part so far?
We do have a lot of discussions in our office, our political philosophy and the way ahead. We absolutely agree on the basic premises, the need to address inequality, create more opportunity for everyone, not to leave behind people in our society, which I think the Brexit vote was about, this sort of warning sign that things aren't well, people haven't all benefited. But we also want to embrace the future, be modern and embrace the digital revolution, and actually work with our partners in the EU to address big critical problems that we're going to face. The biggest challenge, I think, is people like you, Nigel.
Well, no, not at all. That should make your life easy. I tell you what, I've got already today half a dozen callers who hate me. So, I mean, there's lots of fertile ground for you out there. But I tell you something, I promise you something. Setting up and establishing a new political party in this country is a very tough thing to do. Are you doing this on a full-time basis?
I am, and yes, several of us are now full-time, and we're obviously needing to grow the party. We need to build more machinery to obviously deal with the snowballing support we've got coming in. Thousands of ideas and policy ideas people are sending us, how to renew their communities. And this is really wonderful, and this is what's inspiring us.
Oh, there's no shortage of ideas out there. And finally, how have you found the press so far?
The press have been very good. I mean, we've had some tricky interviews, but the massive interest that we're getting is really good. We are the most credible new party around, out of the 51. And we found a lot of European media very excited about us, as well as the domestic media. So we think that's going to grow. One of our biggest challenges is information. I think the fact that we need to make sure quality, truthful information reaches people, that we're not interfered with. There isn't perhaps Russian trolling going on that is going to affect a future vote on this deal, and we need to make sure people understand what the propositions are, all the impacts of what leaving the EU means, the benefits and the negatives.
The biggest trouble you'll have is to establish a name and a face with the great British public. And I've got a recommendation for you. There's a chap out there, he's very well known. He's looking for a new political home. I think you sound like the perfect party for him. I give Tony Blair a ring, if I were you.
We're not going for Tony Blair. No, not Tony Blair.
Well, there you are. But he's well known. That was Sandra Khadhouri, the co-founder and one of the three leaders of the Renew political party, a new political party. And I want to know from you. Is there space, is there room for a new political party in this country, especially one that basically wants to overturn the Brexit result? You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's now 11:17.